Hey, what's going on, my friends? It's now 3 o'clock. Chad here. We start with your Trailblazers. They're on their way to their new destination, Oklahoma City. They kick off a 5-game road trip tomorrow against the Thunder. That tip-off is scheduled for 5. Chris Burkhart will have Blazers game day at 3. It's presented by Coors Light. Our Trailblazers insider, Sean Highkin, will join me today at 5. We'll give the status update on Anthony Simons and DeAndre Ayton. And it's a Trailblazers Ticket Tuesday on Rip City Drive. I have not one but 2 pairs of tickets to give away today. All you have to do is listen to me for your chance to win at 4 and 5. After 2 days of confusion, it has been confirmed that Oregon has clinched a spot in the Big Ten title game. Dennis Dodd of CBS Sports will join me at 3:20 with all the details. The Jets disaster continues. General Manager Hugh Douglas was fired today from college football. When asked about speculation he could leave the program for another job, Colorado coach Deion Sanders said, "I have a kickstand down." Buffs, along with ASU, control their destiny for the Big 12 title game.
It's time for the Rip City Drive, brought to you by Lazy Boy. What's your strategy for comfort? Featuring the crazy and often irrational longtime Portland radio vet, Chad Dewing.
Cocked it back and slammed it down. My goodness. Woo! Dribbles down the left alley. Finds Norm. Straightaway three. Buckets! Norman Powell gives the Clippers a 10-point lead. Timeout, Steve Kerr.
First and goal from the 1. Handoff Joe, right side run. He's in. Touchdown. Hat trick. Joe Mixon scores.
We have a lot of moving parts going on, and we just have to be cleaner and more detailed in certain spots. We're not playing well enough.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Chad Dewing starts now.
Yeah, we heard Dallas Cowboys coach Mike McCarthy in the open, and he used the phrase moving parts. Michael Shacker informed me that he doesn't like that phrase because he thinks it's weak. I'll tell you who's weak is Mike McCarthy. He's as good as gone. His ass is fired, and the Cowboys are a complete mess right now. All of these teams at the bottom of the standings right now in the NFL, they should tank, and if they need a quarterback, they should focus on getting in position to draft Shedeur Sanders. And you know the Raiders are going to do that for sure. The Cowboys are just awful. And we've got the owner ranting about the blinds and the sunlight coming into the stadium. You got the coach using the phrase moving parts. That's a bad football team. It's a mess. And I celebrate it from the standpoint that for years I've had people tell me, oh, it's America's team. Yeah, I'll decide who America's team is. You guys can suck it. And now we can sit back and watch one of the worst fan bases in all of football just suffer. I'm not going to hate it, man. I enjoy it. I love Jerry Jones, but I'm not a Cowboy fan. Screw Dallas, screw their fans, and I will celebrate the fact that they suck. And the Philadelphia Eagles and Washington Commanders right now in control of that division. I don't know how I pulled this off today, but we got a very good and very busy show. First off, I bring goodies today because I care about people. We have 2 pairs of tickets for Trans-Siberian Orchestra, which is coming up this weekend. And we're going to give away those today, 2 pairs. And we're going to have pairs also on Wednesday and Thursday to give away for the show. And everyone I've talked to that's seen that in person said it was awesome. And today is a Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday presented by Lazy Boy and courtesy of your Portland Trailblazers. We have 2 pairs of tickets to give away today. All you have to do is listen to me for your chance to win. So 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, be here or be nowhere. We're going to give away tickets to see your Portland Trailblazers in person. Also on the show, Dennis Dodd of CBS Sports is going to join me in 20 minutes. After all the confusion, and screw the Big Ten for not understanding their own tiebreakers that they created, but there was this massive confusion around the Ducks. Did they clinch a spot in the Big Ten title game or not? Well, coming out of the game in Wisconsin, the prevailing thought was that they had. And I was reporting it as such. And then all of a sudden, the Oregonian came out with a report saying that they had not clinched with some weird scenarios. Well, after further investigation and confirmation from the conference, your Oregon Ducks have clinched a spot in the Big Ten title game. So regardless of what happens after their bye week against Washington, they are in, and they will play the winner of Indiana and Ohio State, who match up in Columbus this Saturday morning at 9. So it's beautiful. The Ducks are in. They're good. And as I've said all along, it doesn't matter that they're undefeated. It's great to have an unbeaten season. That's fine. You can celebrate that. It's cool. But the only thing that matters now, it's not Washington. It's not revenge against Washington for the 2 losses last year. It's getting into the Big Ten title game, preparing the right way, and winning that game. Because the one thing I am convinced of is if you have to play an extra game to win a national championship, I think it puts you behind the 8 ball. We have not seen an expanded playoff. We know it's going to be awesome, but it's going to be hard if you are in that first round because you have to win 4 games. First round, quarterfinals, semifinals, and a national championship game. 4 extra games if you come out of the first round after a long season. It's pretty wild. 12 games and a conference title game. And then all of a sudden, boom, you're in the first round and you got to play 4 more games to win a national championship. No, thank you. Give me the bye and give me 1 less game to play and extra rest so my guys can be in the best possible spot to win a national championship. I look at the first round bye in the playoff for the top 4 ranked conference champions. I look at that like we do the coveted bye week in the NFL playoffs now that only the top seed gets. The extra week of rest. I understand that there is some concern that maybe you could come out rusty, maybe you lose your edge. I'll take my chances with that. I'd rather have a well-rested and healthy football team, or as healthy as you could possibly be going into that game. And for the Ducks, it's very simple. Phil Knight has not spent billions of dollars on the program to just make the playoffs. It's championship or bust. That's all that matters. So you have to ask yourself, what is the best case scenario for us in terms of trying to accomplish that goal? And I think that's winning the conference title game against Indiana or Ohio State. And I don't need to ask you who you're rooting for on Saturday. We all know. Everyone in the state will be pulling for Indiana because we all believe that Indiana would be a better matchup for Oregon than Ohio State, just based on talent alone. And the fact that Ohio State would have revenge on their minds after the loss earlier this season in Eugene. And they're tough. Ohio State's a darn good football team. Now, I'll take Dylan Gabriel over Will Howard all day. Will Howard is meh. He's a meh quarterback. You look at him, you're like, he's okay. But Dylan Gabriel's a dynamic playmaker who's been in big games, who has big balls, and you can't underrate that, man. He's got giant sack, and you need those type of quarterbacks in those moments to lead a team, and Gabriel has that. He's awesome. He's big-time quarterback. So I like where Oregon's at, but all that matters, who cares about Washington? The Huskies are not on the radar. What matters most is winning the Big Ten title game, and we'll see who is going to get in that game against Oregon, Indiana, or Ohio State. Now, I've talked about this at length, but I counted it up again today, and this is why playoff expansion is, well, it's like pornography. It's too good to be true. It's so much of a good thing that I don't know if we're going to be able to handle it, but look at what it's giving us right now. And I counted them up. There's like 20 teams that are still alive for a potential playoff berth. 20. And this weekend, there's like 15 games that have playoff implications. I'm just looking at the top 25. 9 o'clock on Fox, you've got number 5, Indiana, playing at number 2, Ohio State. The winner of that game will face Oregon in the Big Ten title game. It's unbelievable. Great game. At 9 on ESPN, Wake Forest at number 9, Miami. The Hurricanes are battling for a spot in the ACC title game and hoping to get and lock up a playoff spot. Also at 9 on ABC, number 11, Ole Miss at Florida. The Gators suddenly are playing good football. Ole Miss whacked Georgia, and Ole Miss is alive for a playoff berth. Also at 9 on ESPN2, number 14, SMU out of the ACC has 1 loss. They're playing great football. They're unbeaten in conference. They, too, are vying for a playoff spot. At 9:45 on the SEC Network, UMass at Georgia. I know that the game doesn't look great, but the reality is that Georgia right now needs to keep winning to keep their playoff hopes alive. If they win out, they're in. They just crushed Tennessee, and after the first quarter looked unbeatable in that game, they're alive. At 10 o'clock on ESPN, UTEP at Tennessee. The Vols at 8-2 are still alive for a playoff berth. At 12:30 on ABC, Kentucky at number 3, Texas. The Longhorns, while their resume is garbage, they're definitely alive for the SEC title game and a playoff spot. At 12:30 on CBS, number 4, Penn State at Minnesota. The Nittany Lions are alive if they win out. They're going to be in the playoff. I think they're fraudulent, but they're going in for sure. And the game I'm looking forward to the most at 12:30 on ESPN, two of the best stories of the college football season. You've got BYU at Arizona State. Arizona State was ranked for the first time this week. And with their win at Kansas State and the loss of BYU at home to Kansas, both of these teams control their destiny for the Big 12 title game. Arizona State with Kenny Dillingham, their turnaround after back-to-back 3-win seasons, and the program being left in ruins from Herm Edwards and that clown show of a regime have played terrific football. And they've got one of the most exciting players in the nation in Cam Scatteraboo. And their freshman quarterback from West Lynn, Sam Levitt, is playing big-time football. They look great. What a game that is. At 12:30 on Fox, Colorado, who also controls their destiny for the Big 12 title game, is at Kansas. Kansas has a number of one-score losses on the year. They're coming off the road win over BYU. That's a great game. And if you haven't seen Jalen Daniels for Kansas, the quarterback, his running ability and playmaking ability is terrific. At 12:30 on the CW network, the Citadel is at Clemson. Clemson's still alive. And you work yourself throughout the day. How about this? NBC, 4 o'clock. Number 24 Army, unbeaten on the year, is at number 8, taking on number 8 Notre Dame, who's 9-1. Both those teams are alive for a playoff. And you've got 4 o'clock on CBS Sports Network, Boise State at Wyoming, and the Broncos, unbeaten in conference, 13th ranked, clearly alive for a playoff spot. At 4:30 on ABC, number 10 Alabama at Oklahoma. Bama controls their destiny for the SEC title game. They're alive. But do you see what I'm talking about here? That's just the top 25 games. And they all, that I just mentioned, have playoff implications. So we're seeing greatness right in front of us with the way that this is all played out. And I'm having so much fun watching the games. And if you do a little searching online, because the conferences don't know what they're doing, like, for instance, what's the Big Ten doing? How can you not know and announce it right away that Oregon has won a spot in the Big Ten title game after that win over Wisconsin to celebrate it? But no one knew. It's confusing. So you've got these computer geeks from the Big 12 and the Big Ten that know more about the games and their conference than the actual conference does. They created these generators so that you can plug in all the different scenarios to know who's locked into the title game. And that's who I leaned on instead of the conference itself. I just think it's embarrassing that the conference can't even confirm their own scenarios that they came up with. Here's the latest report from the Big Ten. Quote, following a comprehensive evaluation of all possible scenarios over the final 2 weeks of the regular season, across all 18 teams, the Big Ten Conference determined that there are no conditions whereby the Ducks do not finish number 1 or number 2 in the league. Boy, thanks for that 48 hours after the fact, morons. It is your conference. You came up with the scenarios. Why are you taking 2 days to figure it out? And people have to try and figure it out on their own. You came up with the whole plan. You should get that information out right away and be tweeting that Oregon has clinched a spot so we can all celebrate. You want to celebrate your best teams, fools. All right. Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday at 4 and 5. I've also got 2 pairs of tickets for Trans-Siberian Orchestra. And up next, we'll talk to Dennis Dodd with the latest on the Ducks. They've clinched. We'll talk about his piece on Arizona State and the turnaround that Kenny Dillingham has done with that program. And I'll ask him the best story in college football this year. And then what's the committee going to be focused on when they set their playoff field? It's different than years past. That's up next. loving the season so much. So thank you for coming on to talk. All right, Rip City Drive. I'm excited about this. As you know, college football right now is as good as it's ever been. I'm enjoying the games. And joining us to discuss is a man who covers the game from CBS Sports. He's on X at Dennis.CBS, and he's here on the show. Dennis, let's go ahead and start with this. You can clarify this. We came out of the game at Wisconsin with the Ducks, thinking the Ducks had clinched a spot in the Big Ten title game. And then there was a retraction printed yesterday in the Oregonian saying that wasn't the case. But you have clarified and confirmed that they are in the Big Ten title game regardless of what happens. Is that true?
Yeah, well, the Big Ten this afternoon put out a statement saying that. So it's not exactly breaking news. The question is, how did it take from Saturday night to Tuesday afternoon to figure that out? I mean, it's their tiebreaker.
Yeah.
I come from an old school when this sort of thing happens, the conference was on it Saturday night, put out a release, or at least let people know that was the case. In this case, it was being shot down by the Big Ten to some outlets. And so it's just nuts. I mean, I don't know if anybody else is picking up on it, but to have this happen on Tuesday, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. Go ahead.
Well, no, it's anticlimactic. And what's frustrating about it is that if a team wins a game to clinch a spot in your premier game of the season, that's something you want to celebrate, right? You want to celebrate it.
Right. And yes. And this is, to me, kind of a victim of how big conference realignment and conferences have gotten when you can't even figure out your own tiebreaker. I'm not saying that happened, but it certainly looks like it. That's certainly being projected out there.
Well,
I was told by a source that they had to look through all the strength of schedule possibilities and all that. Okay, fine, great. Do it Saturday night.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why you're getting $75 million a year for each school.
Yeah, you know what's funny, Dennis, is that I trust the computer guys, and there's a group from both the Big 12 and also the Big 10 that put out generators where you could plug in all the different scenarios over the final 2 weeks of the regular season, and it would tell you which team was going to be in. So when I went through all the scenarios, the Ducks had already clinched, and so I'm like, and then I see the report from the conference, and I'm like, wait a second, I think I'm going to lean on the guys who generated put together the generator, and so it's kind of embarrassing, and it's unfortunate because I really believe when you have a season, especially like Oregon has had, you want to celebrate those moments.
Absolutely. Quick thought there. The same exact thing, not the exact, but same thing kind of happened in the Big 12. They still haven't published their tiebreakers because when Arizona State beat Kansas State, we all know what happened. The four teams in the race, what happens down the stretch. The closest I could find, because the Big 12 didn't do it, was a sporting news story, listing all the possibilities of common opponents and records, that would go down the stretch. The Big 12 just flat out didn't do it. They put out clinching scenarios.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're talking about. If I'm an Arizona State fan, I want to know what has to happen for my team to get in, or Colorado or BYU or anybody else.
Exactly. So I went back to the generator. So this is a very it's a possibility. I don't expect it to happen, but there is a case where Arizona State, they could win out. So if they beat BYU and then beat Arizona, and then Colorado and Iowa State win out, but BYU loses their final game against Houston, that's the only tiebreak scenario because of their loss to Cincinnati where ASU would be left out. So even though they've almost clinched, there's one scenario because of their loss to Cincinnati where they could be on the outside looking in with a 10-2 record. That's crazy, but that is there. But the Big 12 should be out there to let us know that.
Right, exactly. And I was told Saturday or Sunday when I called by a person in the office, well, we have our team working on it. Well, you created the tiebreaker. You should know it.
Yeah, I agree. We'll get back to ASU in just a moment with the piece you wrote yesterday, but I wanted to start with this. Right now, we have roughly 20 teams that I counted up that are still alive for a potential playoff berth, Dennis. And the second weekend in November, coming up on Saturday, there are 14 games involving teams pushing for the playoffs. What do you think about the impact of the college football playoff expansion that it's had on the season with so many teams still alive?
I think it's great. I think they've hit a home run with it. I did a story on October 31st, going into November 1st, saying this is the month when everything happens, injuries take effect, everything else, and there are still 45 to 50 teams alive for the playoff. And I ran that by 3 of the 4 guys that created the playoff. The only one I was missing, Greg Sankey. I talked to Bob Bowlesby, Craig Thompson, the old Mountain West commissioner, and Jack Swarbrick at Notre Dame, and they said, yeah, that sounds about right. That's how we modeled it. So think about that, 45 to 50 teams, and now you're telling me on November 23rd there's going to be 14 teams still in it. I don't see how it's a negative. I think it's fantastic. It's much better than anything we've ever had. There's going to be some hard decisions because it's a human process selecting these teams, but I think it's great.
Yeah, I love it. Now, one of those teams is Arizona State, and you had a piece up yesterday discussing the turnaround under Kenny Dillingham, who's in year number 2. He left Oregon to return home to his alma mater. They're 8-2 on the year. They're coming off of back-to-back 3-win seasons. How bad of shape was the program in when he took over following the Herm Edwards regime?
Well, dueling investigations into they had improper recruiting during COVID. If people don't know, you couldn't bring players in during COVID, which makes sense. The NCAA mandated that. ASU just completely flaunted that rule to the point where someone or an assistant coach had rented a house, a ritzy house in Paradise Valley, and was entertaining recruits in this ritzy part of Phoenix or Scottsdale. So they had dual investigations going on in that. Upshot of that was the school took a bowl ban before last season without telling anybody in the football office.
Crazy.
Dillingham was furious. Now they ended up 3-9, but that's not the point. Herm Edwards and Ray Anderson ran the program into the ground. That's the best way to say it.
Yeah.
When Kenny Dillingham took over, his dream job, he's a Valley of the Sun guy, was a high school coordinator at the age of 21, went to work for 13 years at various jobs, practicing his acceptance speech at ASU the day he got it, knowing he may never get it, but that's how in love he was with ASU. 47 players on the roster when he took over, 7 of them walk-ons.
Wow.
And look where they are now. 3-9 in his first year. 8-2 now. The chance to win the Big 12. I can't remember. I have to sit down and research this. The last time Kansas State fell behind to anyone by 24 points at home, and that's what happened Saturday night. ASU won 24-14, but I just think it's great to happen. Oh, a quick story on that. I forgot to put it in the story because I'd written about it before. In the midst of this turnaround, if you remember, they landed Jaden Rashada.
That's right.
The quarterback from Florida. And I went to the spring game. I was at the spring game and Jaden Rashada and talked to him on the field. And here's this guy who was offered $13 million by Florida, subsequently sued the school and everybody involved in it when they ended up not paying it on the offer. And this guy jumps out of the stands, literally had flown in from Virginia and was trying to sell him on some website that washed your clothes for you on the field at the spring game. That's how absurd it got.
No, it's crazy. And from what I heard, Sam Levitt, who's from West Lynn here in Oregon, having a great freshman season at ASU, I was told that he beat out Rashada in the spring game, and that's what eventually led to his move to Georgia. Is that true?
Yeah, I think that's right. Levitt was at Michigan State, and Kenny Dillingham told me that he was his first offer when he was OC at Florida State.
Wow.
I thought, that's amazing.
Amazing.
He saw something in him. Right. I mean, this is a guy that has coached Bo Nix. The list of quarterbacks he's had is incredible. He had Bo Nix at Oregon, obviously, under Dan Lanning. And they came to Arizona State. So I trust judgment in quarterbacks, is my point.
No, it's great. We're talking with Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports here on the Rip City Drive. What is Coach Dillingham doing differently that so many before him have failed to do in that area where many people believe that with the weather and the surrounding area that you should be able to build a winner? Why do you think he's been able to find the magic? Is it his local knowledge?
Yeah, that's a great question. This is a program that hasn't won a conference title since 2007.
Wow.
It is the ultimate. Last Rose Bowl was 96 in the old days when such a thing, you contested for that in the Pac-10, 12. it's the ultimate sleeping giant. I used to say, if you've ever been there, it's like, how can you get 85 guys from work release that want to come here that are good players? I mean, seriously.
No joke.
And they just underachieved, and I don't know. I mean, they actually have an advantage with the heat. They're used to it. People come in there and go, whoa, whether it's day or night. I can't explain it. They spent money. They have actually downsized the stadium. That stadium, Sun Devil Stadium, which is now Mountain Bank Stadium or something. I don't know. It's a really nice, cozy place. I can't. They were part of that Pac-12 thing where everybody had 2 losses by November 1st. So it wasn't just them, but it's been going on a long, long time. I think it's savvy player evaluation. And look, he still has to finish the deal.
Yeah, you got to
finish. They have to keep this going. Yeah, they have to go for a period of years doing this. But I think they can in the Big 12, because when the Big 12 was formed, they weren't good, but that was one of the first programs I saw. I was like, this league is wide open. If Arizona State ever gets good, it's going to be a hell of a story. And so here we are.
All right, so Dennis, if you had to pick a team, who's the best story in college football this season? Is it Colorado? Is it Arizona State, Indiana, BYU, or somebody else?
I'm kind of torn between Colorado and Indiana for 2 completely different reasons. You got a 63-year-old sort of journeyman in Kurt Signetti now doing what he's done with off to their best start ever. At Indiana, and then you've got the complete opposite of him, Coach Prime, whose every move is documented by a content crew, and has his family, his sons, generating the excellence there. He's got the best player in the country, and I heard him last week. He's fulfilled his destiny. You heard him last week say, "Well, they're still the haters." If anybody's hating on Deion Sanders for being a football coach right now, they're nuts.
Yes.
He has done what he was brought there to do. Now, last year was underwhelming. They got better a little bit. That September of 23, I'll never forget it because there was nothing like it in college athletics. The buzz he generated because I was there in the middle of it. But now is showing proof of concept. And they are a really good team who, again, and I'm so glad to be here in Kansas City. That's my game. I get to see the Heisman Trophy favorite play in the home of the defending Super Bowl champions. How about that for a storyline?
Oh, it's so good. It's terrific. I'm loving this season so much. Oh, one quick question about I've been telling people to watch Cam Scatterbo, the running back extraordinaire from Arizona State. I think he's my favorite player to watch because of his overall style and his physicality. What are your thoughts on the work he's done coming over from the FCS last year up till now?
I wish I'd seen him play more because I just haven't. And we used to have a house down there, and I did go to a couple of games, but I think he's fantastic. He's the ultimate everyman. Lined up, has played quarterback, not lined up at quarterback, has played quarterback, run for 269 yards in the game. He's the try-hard guy. It makes you think that anybody can work hard enough can do it. And you talked about why Arizona State hasn't gotten to this place they are now. It's because of him and guys like him on that roster that are finally there. This is finally paid off. I go back to, what was the kid's name at Missouri last year who became a Doak Walker candidate, and he was a walk-on. Scatterbo could have never walked on at Texas A&M or USC because they wouldn't have taken him. I mean, they would look down their nose at a guy like him. But at Arizona State, he's the ultimate everyman. I love him.
Yeah, that's terrific. 2 more questions for you. With the playoff expansion, what do you think is the most important thing to keep in mind when it comes to the committee this year as they begin their selection process?
Oh, gosh, they're not supposed to think about conference affiliation, but we know they do. These are human beings. I talked to Jeff Long, who was the first chair, the old Arkansas AD, and I've written a story that he said we consciously had to remind these people in the room not to think about or bring up conference affiliation. Now, they couldn't help in the hallways or in the bathrooms or whatever, or around the banquet, the buffet. But look, when you've got this situation in the SEC where you've got 6 teams, not only in contention, but all 6 are capable of winning a national championship. We talk about Texas, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, A&M, Ole Miss even, and maybe two of them are going to have to be left out. There's going to be a spitstorm, and there's especially going to be one if Indiana loses big Saturday to Ohio State, and the Paul Feinbaum show is going to be filled with, well, Georgia is better than Indiana.
Yes.
And it's going to get worse, I guarantee you, if a team like Georgia loses its third game in the SEC championship game and Indiana goes instead of that team.
Oh.
That's going to be something, and I can't wait for it. I'm here for it.
Yeah, me too. I'm definitely here for it. It's great. It's so fascinating. Heck, even Army's undefeated, getting ready to take on Notre Dame. What if they finish out the season unbeaten? I mean, it's crazy. Like, Army alive for a playoff berth. That's how amazing this expansion has been. The final question for you, Dennis, is that, I mean, it appears to me that when you look at the upper crust in college football, that the race for a championship this year appears to be wide open. What I'm wondering is that with Oregon this year, in years past, they've had some really good teams, but physically couldn't match up with the Ohio States or the Auburns or the teams that could get it done at the line of scrimmage. Oregon appears to be stronger at the point of attack. Do you think they have the material to match up with the best teams in the country to win a potential national championship?
I do. I think that Oregon and Indiana have been the most consistent team this year. I know there's only 3 undefeated teams, but yeah, I do. I mean, I think they've got that look. And I think why this playoff is so fun and cool, teams are going to have to win maybe 4 games to win a national championship after the season's over.
Wow.
Depending on if you play a first-round game or not. And nobody knows what that looks like. Nobody knows what the rest looks like, practice schedule, how teams are covered. Are there going to be opt-outs for the draft? But, yeah, I think having seen Oregon, and I'm going to see them in Indianapolis again, I think they're equipped. I love Dan Lanning's style. I love how he's assembled the roster. Got a really unique story coming on Dylan Gabriel for next week. No, I think it looks like the Chip Kelly teams of old. Chip Kelly's teams didn't play defense this well.
That's right.
But they were based in run-first philosophy. People forget about that.
They were.
Chip loves to run the ball. And obviously that's what's happening here, even though you've got an elite quarterback.
Hey, are you going to make it to one of the first-round games so you can see a campus site playoff game?
I am, but none of us know where that's going to be. I would love to book that right now.
Dude, how good is that going to be?
One thing, I think one thing to watch in this, I was alerted to this by one of my colleagues. These northern teams, it's not just the Big Ten, but the SEC never plays up there, never. So it's going to be interesting to see who comes up to say plays Penn State. That would never have come up there. Alabama went and played Wisconsin this year. That was an anomaly thing. But to have some of those SEC teams and their swagger come up and play at night in the middle of December, maybe in weather, I'd love to see what that looks like.
Oh, my gosh. This conversation was so much fun. Dennis Dodd, CBS on social. He covers college football, and he's been doing it the right way for a long time. Dennis, that conversation was so much fun. I'm loving the season so much, so thank you for coming on to talk about it.
You got it. Thanks so much.
But I tell you what, you got to love Dennis Dodd. I'm really geeking out on this college football right now because there's so many great stories. Oregon is just one of the many great stories. But I asked him that question about Oregon for a purpose because what I'm seeing with Oregon this year, and I would imagine most of you Duck fans would agree, this is a different type of team. Different because they're stronger and more physical at the point of attack. And look, you don't need me to tell you this. Just look at the last 20 years. Look at the majority of teams that have won the championship in your lifetime. And I can go back all the way to the 80s. Typically, the teams that win national championships are teams that are dominant at the line of scrimmage, teams that can manhandle you up front and control the game in the trenches. And when you can do that, you're going to be successful. And that's what makes Oregon different this year, the way that they're winning at the point of attack. And the good teams, the best teams in the country that have a legitimate chance to win a national championship, that's what they're doing. They're winning the battle up front in the trenches. That's where the game's won. It always has been. And so if you're a Duck fan, you got to love what you're seeing right now. It is wide open for the championship, and Oregon is good enough to beat anybody. I still think Georgia would be the most difficult matchup, but they have enough deficiencies on offense to where you can compete with them. And you got to be excited. But I'm pumped for Arizona State. I'm excited for Indiana. All of these teams that have a chance. Heck, Army, if they can somehow find a way to beat the Irish this weekend and finish the season unbeaten, they're in the mix. I'm still mad. It's so great that it just makes me angry for all the years that those idiots lied to us. The powers that run the game of college football for years screwed us over because there was money to be made in these stupid bowls. And they're so greedy and dumb that they can't let go of the bowls. Get rid of the bowls already and just give us campus sites for every playoff game except for the championship. Just jump in with both feet, fools. Oh, it just drives me crazy. Oh, yeah, the BCS, it makes conversation. Like, I don't want conversation. I want a real playoff where we have games decided on the field. Idiots. It's not hard. Figure it out. So we're moving in the right direction. It's not perfect, but, man, we're getting close. All right, we'll keep things rolling. First pair of tickets for Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday coming up at 4. Sean Hiken at 5. Colin Amos in studio at 4:20. And Bo Nix update with Ryan Edwards at 5:20. Basically, whatever you need, I've got for you today. All right, I'm going to try and carve out time. According to reports, Giselle was impregnated by her jiu-jitsu instructor, the guy that she was cheating on with when she was still with Tom Brady. And I was Team Tom. I knew when she started going crazy about him playing football or continuing to play football, I knew something was up. I knew something was up. I was Team Tom, and normally I'm not Team Tom, but I was on his side the whole way through that nonsense. What do you say? You're going to marry a pro football player, and not just a player, but the best player of all time, and you're confused at why he wants to continue to play football? And when you met him, he was the most dedicated quarterback of all time. And then you make ultimatums. Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. All right, I've got to share. Let me just tell you, I want to nerd out for just a couple of moments because I love this kind of stuff. And this is what happened. So last night, I was stuck in one of my usual YouTube modes. And I was on Twitter. And so I've got the laptop out. So I'm working the computer. And I've got, my phone. And I'm looking at Twitter. And I came across this post from somebody named Cujo Knows. And he had posted up a song playlist that I found on his Twitter because it was scrolling through my feed. And so I hit the playlist, and he put together an entire playlist of 97 songs, and he titled it Gridiron Gold. That's what he titled the playlist. 97 songs of all these different music beds that we all grew up listening to that were running under sports highlights on primetime and different sports programming back when we were kids. Now, the reason why this stuff matters to me is that you got to remember, and I know a lot of you that are around my age will understand this, that before the internet, we were stuck in a world of broadcast television. And cable had come to be, so we had ESPN, but we did not have access prior to NFL Ticket to all the different games that we would have wanted to watch. And when I moved from Denver out to the Northwest, I went from being in a market locally that had every Bronco game on to being in a market where I was having the Seahawks jammed down my throat. So I did not get to watch the Broncos every weekend. And there was no Sunday NFL Ticket at the time when I moved out here. So unless you knew someone with one of those gigantic freaking flying saucers in their backyard, those old satellite dishes that took up an entire backyard that could have the power to reach any station in any market in the country, you were SOL. You were not going to be able to watch your team. And I hated it. It drove me crazy because back then we didn't have the internet. There was no constant updating on your phone. You couldn't follow along on your computer. So you had to wait about every 10 to 15 minutes during the course of the game you were watching where they would throw up the 10-minute ticker. Or you could flip over to CNN Headline Sports at the top and bottom of every hour for an update to find out what was going on with your team. And in my case, the Denver Broncos. So what became very important were highlight shows, ESPN Primetime, or it could have been the George Michael Sports Machine, or on your local newscast. The highlights were critical for you to be able to stay up on your team. Or even before my time, the spot to go was Howard Cosell on Monday Night Football because he would do his highlight package of the weekend's action. And my buddy Steve told me that's how he knew what went on with his team, the Redskins, at the time. So he'd tune in to go watch Howard and the highlights. We didn't have access to up to the second highlights or tweets or any of that stuff. It's crazy that you think about it because it's like, how can I not have access to my team? And now we've got access to everything. I can walk around the grocery store with my phone and watch Sunday Ticket from my phone with this little mini computer that I have in my hands. It's remarkable. Now, for those of you who are younger that have only grown up with having access to everything, you don't really have to worry about what I went through because you've always had access to everything. Now, heck, even Trailblazer games now are available for free every single game across broadcast era. But back in the day, they weren't. And if I wanted to watch a big home game with Magic Johnson coming to town or Michael Jordan, it was Blazer cable time. And somehow I had to find a way to trick my dad into paying $14.95 for a game. And that was very difficult to do because now he's money bags with the grandkids, but my dad before was very tight. He would not give up a dollar unless I had a very strong reason. That's why I always went to my mom when I needed some side cash. So, anyways, I'm going through this playlist, and I'm coming across songs that I'm like, oh, this is nice. Like this one here, it's called Performance, and this was on several highlights, and it took me on a little flashback trip to some of the Denver Bronco games on primetime. Just take a listen how beautiful this is. Oh, it's so nice. And I came across multiple songs on this playlist. And so today I'm talking to Michael Shacker, and he just happens to have up an old video on YouTube from the 1987 San Francisco Giants team highlights. And he goes, hey, do you know what this song is? And it was a highlight song. And I go, no, but I'll find it. And within 10 minutes, I found it in this list from Cujo. Shacker, how happy are you that I found it?
Oh, I'm happy. I've been looking for that song, but I don't know how to find like a generic highlight background song. I mean, this is an official song. Now, because of you, I now learned it was released in 1984 for the Olympics.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. And so I found a bunch of these songs. I'm just absolutely just blown away by how great it is. This takes me right back to my childhood, Shacker. Right back to it. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Thank you to Cujo for setting Michael Shacker and I up for the rest of our life. If you want to play this song at my funeral, I'm perfectly happy with that. All right, when we come back, it's Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday, your first chance to win a pair of tickets for your Portland Trailblazers. And then Colin Amos in studio at 4:20. Oh, yeah. It's now 4 o'clock chat here. Trailblazers took off today. Destination Oklahoma City. They kick off a 5-game road trip tomorrow against the Thunder. That tip-off scheduled for 5. Chris Burkhardt will have Blazers game day at 3. On your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. It's presented by Coors Light. Our Trailblazers insider Sean Highkin will join the show at 5, and we'll get a status update on Anthony Simons and DeAndre Ayton. It's a Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday. I have not one but 2 pairs of tickets to give away today. All you have to do is listen to me for your chance to win at 4 and 5. After 2 days of confusion, it has been confirmed that Oregon has clinched a spot in the Big Ten title game, according to the conference. The Jets' disaster continues. They have fired general manager Hugh Douglas. And from college football, when asked about speculation he could leave the program for another job, Colorado coach Deion Sanders said, I have a kickstand down. The Buffs, along with ASU, control their destiny for the Big 12 title game. All right, it's time to give away some goodies. Here's how it's going to play out the rest of the show. We're going to do a pair of Trailblazer tickets right now. This is for the game coming up on the 29th against Sacramento. And the Kings, for me, with their roster and the way they play, one of my favorite teams to watch. I like their pace. I like their coach. I'm a big fan of De'Aaron Fox and obviously Sabonis. A great team. So these tickets will be for the Kings game on the 29th. I will give away a pair of tickets for Trans-Siberian Orchestra at 4:45 and 5:20. And we'll do the second pair of Trailblazer tickets at 5 o'clock. So that's how it's going to shake out for y'all with the tickets. Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday. So just write this down. Remember, burn it into your dome, whatever you got to do. Every Tuesday here on the show between now and the end of the basketball season, thanks to your Trailblazers, Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday, we'll have tickets to give away to every single home game. Every single game and sometimes multiple pairs like today. And all you have to do is listen to me for your chance to win. Every Tuesday. So Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday is not just occasional Tuesday. It's every Tuesday. And it's for every single flipping game. You can't beat that. That's good for you and it's good for me. You win, because the only thing better than sports is free sports, right? And just like golf, the only thing better than golf is free golf. So when you get free tickets and you get a chance to go and hang out, and more importantly, watch Shaden Sharp and Donovan Clingan and the young guys as they continue to grow and develop, you got to come here. Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday. So we'll keep this one simple, and I'll probably challenge you a little bit more at 5 o'clock. We'll take caller 7. Caller 7 right now, 503-248-0620. 503-248-0620. If you want to go to the game, call now. 503-248-0620. Caller 7 gets a pair of tickets for the Kings and the Trailblazers. 503-248-0620. I want to hear from a Trailblazer fan. 503-248-0620, and we'll do our second pair for the Trailblazers coming up at 5. Trans-Siberian Orchestra tickets. I can barely say that. We're going to do our first pair for that at 4:45. In fact, I think the Trailblazers is probably a good way to start right now. Colin Amos, my good friend from the law offices of Goldberg Jones, is coming in at 4:20 in studio to answer your divorce questions. So he'll be in studio here in about 15 minutes. The Trailblazers getting ready for this 5-game road trip. Keep in mind, they're coming off a 3-game winning streak. Back-to-back wins against Minnesota and Sunday's win over Atlanta, playing very good basketball. And most importantly, it's the young players who have shined through. Shaden Sharp, back-to-back games of 30 or more. Donovan Clingan had the dominant game on Wednesday, 17 points, 12 rebounds, and 8 blocks. Tamani Kamara's played well. How about Delano Banton balling out of his backside, especially in the fourth quarter? But Coach Billups was asked at practice yesterday about wanting to know if this team can keep up, unlike years past. He's like, hey, I'm just worried about right here and right now.
Man, I don't think about last November, that's for sure. I don't even think about last season. It's totally different. It feels totally different. Y'all can see it. You can feel it. So I'm not concerned with that. I just want us to keep playing the right way. You know, obviously we're about to go out on a monster trip. But I don't care what happens. I just want us to play right and continue to get better, you know. So I don't think about things like that.
I like that. Just continue to improve and play the game the right way, meaning show up with intensity and be ready to fight, like they did not against Memphis before he called out his guys. You know, Billups knows that they're not the most talented team in the NBA, but the least they can do is show up and play with that type of spirit, that energy, that fight where they get after teams. And they have to, based on their makeup, if they want to have a chance to compete. They're going to outwork teams. They're going to, try to push pace when they can with their effort. That's what he means when he says play the right way. And then with the improvements, I mean, heck, like we've seen in the 3-game winning streak, periods of great ball movement and player movement. We've seen young guys step up and excel late in games. We've seen them do a better job rebounding, more connected defensively. So the improvement can come from individuals or the team. Now, a couple of players I want you to hear from. Number one, Denny Avdia, who I really like. I think he's coming off that game Sunday, 12 points, 8 boards, 4 assists. He's a good all-around player. He's a good dude and a good teammate. And, he's still finding his way with this team. But he does a lot of different things on the floor well. The only big issue has been the struggles shooting the ball early, especially from distance. But he talked about the team staying together, coming through that rough patch against Memphis, being called out by coach, and then getting a 3-game win streak.
It feels good. I mean, the vibe is great. I think the players, we start to connect and build chemistry and see some wins under our belt. So I feel like it feels good, especially with the amount of work we put in. And that's it. The season's still long, I'm not going to say we're going to win every game from now to the end of the season, but we got to stay together and even on the lows.
Yeah, stay together. So I think the best thing, and I'm not just saying this for effect, but based on the people I talked to, I don't want to blow it out of proportion, but I think the best thing about Coach coming out and questioning their heart, saying they were soft, he said they were embarrassing multiple times, said that if they slept well after the Memphis game, they're a loser. He said all the things as a coach that you cannot say, but he went there. He went nuclear. Most importantly, he got the response that he needed, which is critical. So props to him for that. He got the response that was needed. But the bottom line is it allowed for more communication, an open line of communication where guys started talking because they don't have a dominant vocal leader on the team. The veteran guys are more of quiet types. They lead by example, but they're not going to voice loudly what's on their mind in the locker room because it would be out of character. It's not their personality. Guys like Ant or DeAndre Ayton or Jeremy Grant, that's just not how they roll. So maybe Billups needed to do that to get these guys to start talking more. And it's good. It's a good thing. Avdia also talked about, because he started and then now he's on the bench because Shaedon Sharp's been getting the start, and he talked about bringing that energy as a group off the bench.
We're trying to bring the energy. So since I came from the bench, and especially me and Delano going up first, but everybody that comes in trying to bring energy, trying to bring like the extra thing they can do to help the team, and I feel like we did it yesterday. We kind of started slow the game, and I feel like when the second unit came in, we really pushed the pace, and we helped bring back the energy to the game. So.
All right, so what I like is, it's nice to have versatile players, guys who can adjust to any role. That's pretty much obvious. I mean, he can start, but if you need to bring him off the bench, he can provide that type of energy, so he does a little bit of everything, which is nice. Elsewhere, Chris Murray, who, the coaching staff continues to praise because of his work ethic. Couple of things here, and he's been productive. He's one of those young players you want to watch for improvement. He's getting better with his shot, but he's usually in the right place at the right time. An effective rebounder and doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He got that nickname last year, Mr. Perfect, because they tell him something once and he remembers, and he usually does the right thing moving forward. But he said his role is just to stay ready. And I like this as a bench player, being ready to roll when you get the call.
Yeah, I mean, just whenever the opportunity presents itself, you have to be ready. And I didn't know when that would be early this season, and it kind of happened on the fly in Minnesota. And I was ready to go and just want to make a difference in the game whenever I can. And just kind of give our guys some energy. I feel like the bench unit definitely did that yesterday, getting us back in the game. And for me, it's just being ready at all times.
All right, there's Chris Murray, just being ready at all times. And he's played really well. I still go back to last year when all those guys had a chance to play the young guys extended minutes because of the injuries and the way the season was going. You're seeing the benefits of that now because they're stepping into spots that they're accustomed to now because of the experience last year. And I think it allows some of those guys like Chris Murray to play better. He also talked about his shot. If you really want to be a difference maker on the team, make threes because they need guys who can knock down open shots. But he put in a lot of time during the offseason on his shot, and he talked about that work.
Yeah, no, it feels a lot better. Just a lot of reps, probably the most shots I've ever gotten up this summer, and that hard work definitely pays off, especially in the game when I'm sitting for a while and then I come in. You gotta trick your mind to think you've been in for the last 10, 15 minutes. So for me, it's just those reps in practice and just kind of shooting unconsciously.
All right, so really, what else do you want? Chris Murray's improving. We're seeing improvement from Delano Banton. Like, he's really mind-blowingly good in terms of what he has become for the Trailblazers, where Chauncey Billups is trusting him to run the offense and facilitate in the fourth quarter. That's not easy to do. So I really respect his play. Avia is getting better. And then, obviously, Shaedon Sharp's been terrific, especially over the last couple of games since he's returned to the lineup. But those back-to-back games with 30 or more, carrying the offense. He had 13 in the third and was once again the meal ticket on the fourth on Sunday like he was on Wednesday. His veteran teammates looking for him, and he's not just doing it from the outside, but he's putting the ball on the floor, working off the bounce, putting pressure on the defense, and really showcasing his talents. And I think the most exciting part about the last couple of games is just it's giving you a glimpse of what it could be in the future. Now, I know a lot of Blazer fans have reached out to me, and I'm sure you've had this discussion with your friends at work that are they screwing themselves out of an opportunity to get Cooper Flagg because they're winning too many games. I think there's 3 games that separate them and the Utah Jazz, who are going to probably be the worst team in the Western Conference. The way I look at it is very simple. The Blazers are going to lose plenty of games this year just based on how they're constructed. But if they're going to have these stretches where they win 2 in a row or 3 in a row, and you're getting improvement from the young players and they're the ones who are carrying you, then you just live with the result. Because the roster is going to change with time before the deadline. But I wouldn't worry about this. I would celebrate the fact that you're seeing some of the young guys step up and produce. And when you get that, you celebrate it, and you enjoy the moments, and then you continue to move forward. But the most important thing this year, aside from talent acquisition, like we talked about, is what? Well, it's player development. And when you see Donovan Clingan pull down 12 rebounds and get 8 blocks to go along with 17 points, or you get Shaedon Sharp in his third year going back-to-back games with 30 or more and carrying the offense, or you're seeing Delano Banton emerge as one of the key facilitators and playmakers who has great length, then you just look at that and say, hey, this is good news because now they can start to pick and choose which guys are going to be a part of the core moving forward. And getting that type of data in the players that they have and understanding who they are so you can start to, have a vision of the roster long-term, it's critical. And they didn't get enough of that data for certain players last year because of the injuries. So I'm pretty excited. All right, we'll come back. Next pair of tickets for Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday at 5. But when we return, my good friend from the law offices of Goldberg Jones, Colin Amos, is in studio. We have questions. He's going to answer those. Your telephone number if you are facing a divorce or custody issue, or if you need a prenuptial agreement, which he will remind you is critical, call 1-800-DIVORCE. We'll talk to Colin next. All right, very happy to welcome my good friend Colin Amos in studio, and we've got questions for him that he will answer. If you're facing a divorce or custody issue, or if you need a prenuptial agreement, they also specialize in that. You just simply call 1-800-DIVORCE, and here's the best part. Colin individually himself will return all calls. He will take your call. He will answer all of your questions. It may be that you don't need an attorney. Maybe you do, but he'll give you the advice and point you in the right direction. 1-800-DIVORCE is the telephone number. Colin, it's great to see you, my friend. And we were just talking about the Sphere down in Las Vegas. I have not been in the Sphere yet to see a show, but I know people that have. And the best compliment that was given to me was they said, hey, I went in and you listen to these rock songs your whole life. And so in your mind, you have this image of what the song means. Yep. And he goes, then the band will play a certain, video or image behind them as they're performing the song. And he goes, it changes your entire idea of what the song is and what it's about. And I thought that was pretty amazing. Have you been inside the building yet?
I have not been inside the building. I wanted to go. There's the Postcards on Earth, which is the poor man's version of going to the Sphere, which is during the day you go to a matinee and they do this whole thing. But that's still $150, $200.
Gosh.
Whereas the Eagles, U2 come out, when that came out, $2,500 just to see a concert. So I just I'm gonna go to Postcards on Earth.
I don't know what the most is I've paid to go to an Eagles show, but there comes a point where I'm like, no, I've seen enough. Yeah. I'm not going to pay $1,000 to go. I'm just not going to do it. That's
I saw the Eagles once. It was absolutely worth it. I saw them in Vegas.
Yeah, with me. Well, I was at the show too.
Oh yeah, that's right. You were at the same show. Yeah, I loved it. I loved the fact that they played the guitars and they had the guys that actually could still play guitar behind them. It was an awesome show. Loved it.
That was great. And then you took us to dinner. Was it over there at Caesar's Palace?
Oh yeah, that's right. We went to Joe's.
Yes,
Stone
with the
crab.
rock crab, right?
It was awesome. Yeah, Joe's
Stone crab.
There's only two. There's one in Florida and one in Vegas. That's right. We spent some money on that evening. That was fun.
No,
I'm not saying for you, but it was.
No, you did. You took care of me, and it was such a great night because those meals. What I thought was great the way you had it set up, and because you invited us, which was very kind. But what was neat is that we had a bunch of people there, and the service at places like that is so good that they space drinks, appetizer, main course, and we were able to sit there for like 2 or 3 hours and just have conversation, enjoy wonderful food.
That's right. And great food. Obviously great company to sit there and not be rushed and be actually have a great time and enjoy it. And then you're getting your drink on. At least I always get my drink on there.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that.
But
that was, think about this, and this is crazy, but that was 12 years ago. So you and I have known each other for a long time, but that was a long time ago. But
that was halfway through our relationship. I think I've known you almost 20 years.
Yeah. Isn't that wild?
That is crazy.
No, it's pretty crazy. I was talking to my buddy Steve last night, and he and I have been tight for 25 years, friendship, right?
Yeah.
And my workout partner I've known for 32 years. And then I've known you for 20 years. It's just funny as you get older, you look around and you have these people that have been a part of your circle for an extended period of time. Like I appreciate long-term relationships where you know people for a long time. You don't realize the value when you're younger, but as you get older, you're like, I'm glad I have these people in my life. It's cool.
And I like looking back, and I always try to surround myself with quality people that treat other people well, that have integrity, and so it's you build that kind of universe around people you want to hang with and people you respect, and so it is nice. But I have these silos. I have my workout group, and they have their own. I have my own get together there. Then I have the law firm. Then I have my fraternity group that you've heard. We get together every year, 25 of us. So then I have the radio group and show up at Blazer games, and you come down to the court and say hi and all that kind of stuff.
Do you run into old clients, people that you've helped through a divorce time, a difficult time in their life, where maybe it's 5 or 10 years down the road where they're in a better place and they thank you for their help?
You that happens all the time. I have this blank out. When I walk out of the office, I forget everybody I've met with and their situation, which I've had lots of times that I've shown up at Safeway or I showed up at this venue.
Yeah.
And I don't remember anybody, but they remembered me. And then one guy actually pulled me aside and said, hey, I was in your office. Just don't tell my wife. And I'm like, I can't remember anything about it, so that's a good thing. But he came in for a consult. I call it recon, where you're trying to get information and make sure that you're prepared.
Yeah.
But then they reconciled, which is great. but he was afraid that I was going to say something. But I totally black out on because I don't want to disclose anything. So
No, that's good.
if they're one of my clients or our clients and you're in Safeway, when I don't say hi, it's intentional and unintentional. But I don't want to say hi with your wife walking by.
No. Hey, who's that? Yeah, you don't want to ask that question.
No.
Yeah, because I was in Safeway last night. I had stopped by after work to. I just needed to grab a couple items for dinner, and I was on the phone with my buddy Steve, and so I'm talking loud because we're talking about football and all this just nonsense, right? The typical stuff we talk about.
This.
And then all of a sudden, I go through the self-check, and this guy, I look over to my right, and the guy's holding up this receipt, and he had written on the back of it, "Are you on the radio?" And I said, "Steve, hold on." So I put I introduced myself, and it was a guy that listens to me and is a big Blazer fan, and so he went out of his way to tell me, he goes, "Hey, I just want to let you know that I've grown up listening to you, and me and my dad are big fans, and I love the Blazers." And it was so nice of him to do that. But my thought was, I told Steve when I got back on the phone, I said, "Dude, I think I was talking so loud when I was yelling at you that he probably heard my voice, and I recognize that voice."
I do it all the time. Especially when I'm talking about football and I get, I forget where I'm, my surroundings.
Now, real quick, because I want to make sure my memory is correct, but at Joe's, they specialize in that certain type of
stone crab.
Stone crab, and if I recall, they cut the claws off.
Yep.
And you eat the meat inside the claw, but those claws regenerate, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is.
This family got the rights to stone crab in Miami.
Yeah.
And it's a really difficult restaurant to get in. I think it's in Miami. It's in Florida. And they got all the rights to stone crab. And so they started, it's just Miami. And I think there may be one in Chicago now. But, yeah, these crab, they take off the claw, and then they put them back in the water, and then it regenerates. And
that's amazing.
So it used to be like, bait for for all the other stuff out there that you didn't want to eat. Now they become a delicacy, and they ship them off to Vegas, where all the great seafood is. Yes.
Yeah, where all
right.
the great seafood is.
Yes.
Yeah. I just thought that was neat. I was like, whoa, they regenerate.
That's right.
Gosh, that's awesome.
That's right.
All right. Colin Amos in studio. 1-800-DIVORCE is the telephone number. Real quick before you get to the questions. I think you were excited about the college football playoff expansion too. What I didn't know when they did this is that, we're getting ready to go into week 3 of November, and we still have like 20 teams that are alive for a potential playoff berth. And there's like 15 to 20 games every weekend that have like a playoff implication.
Awesome.
Like, dude, expansion's brought even more than what I thought it would to the game. It's great.
Oh, talk about and the gambling impact it has.
Oh,
because as a degenerate as I am, all these games now they're meaningful, and everybody. One of the guys I listened to talk about, well, which team is in the beauty pageant because they're not for sure in, but they got to put it on, like the Ohio State or something like that, or maybe Oregon. I think Oregon's just going to be in. But so then you have to take consideration that, and there's so many betting opportunities, so many gaming opportunities. It's really a lot of fun to watch. And now we're going to have real games as opposed to the bowl games, which is who knows what's going to show up at any given bowl game. But now the playoffs are going to be fun. It's going to be great.
That's awesome.
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's so cool. And now how much would you enjoy just throwing a little dagger at the Ducks at the end of the season now?
Yeah, that would be nice. We're both on the bye week.
Yeah.
And then we both come off. But I won't be greedy because last season, we beat them the first time, and everybody's like, "Oh, you got us." Penix was on his game, and I'm like, "Yeah." Then the second game that had pretty serious implications, certainly for the Huskies. I thought, okay, we're going to lose this one, and we come back and win. So I'm okay losing this year. I hope we give them a good game, but
yeah, as a Husky fan, like the ride last year was special, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, it was great. I was in Houston,
you
which
went
is
to the game.
I went to the game. It was the wrong game to go to, clearly, but it was certainly pretty cool to be there.
But still, I mean, when I love going to big events, and you can't control the outcome, but to be able to say you were there and be a part of a national championship game,
it was something.
Doesn't get much better than that.
It was something else because it's hard to get there, obviously.
Yeah. Speaking of high ticket prices.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Those were crazy
high.
Yeah, because I didn't have season tickets, so I had to buy them off people, and that's a little pricey.
But it was worth it, right?
Absolutely.
All right, we got questions for Colin. Again, the telephone number 1-800-DIVORCE. He's with the law offices of Goldberg Jones. You can also check him out online at goldbergjones-or.com. And our first question today, Colin, for you is, Colin, when it comes to a parenting plan, how do we reach agreement when it comes to our children and the activities they can participate in when it comes to sports, music, or anything outside the normal classroom? And what if there are disagreements?
That's a tough one to answer. It's a very good question because we get through the parenting plan. We talk about your every other weekend, or you have Thursday to Monday morning with your kids. That's your time. But the quality time, as I talk about, is weekends, holidays, vacations. Well, that quality time, especially growing up with my kids and coaching and being involved in basketball and soccer and all sorts of things, my weekend, well, that's soccer or that's basketball or somebody. So when a parent starts to enroll them in activities like, well, basketball practices, 2 practices a week, and then it's going to invade my weekend, there starts to get some conflict over that. It's like you're scheduling these activities that's interfering with my parenting time. So there's a reasonableness requirement, really, that we put in there that says, reasonable activities you can't over-involve them in a bunch of activities that can interfere with their parenting time. So you have to be real careful in that. Excuse me. But there's no real strong lean because the court's going to recognize that all kids need to be involved in some level of activity. And when there's disagreements, generally the primary care parent's going to have kind of an ability to make that decision. And what are you going to tell your kids? Sorry, you don't get to go play in your football game this weekend because it's my time. It's more time to spend time with dad or mom. So most people work it out, but we rarely want to go to court over those things.
Yeah, and hopefully, even with disagreements between the divorced couple, hopefully the kids will, in their best interest, will lead the decision-making, I would hope.
Yeah, but there are parents that over-involve them just to interfere, and that becomes a bit of a problem.
All right, next question, Colin. I live in Washington State, and my wife and I are recently separated and are living in different homes while we go through the divorce. She is threatening to take our boys to Arizona where her family lives. How do I prevent this from happening? You probably hear this from time to time.
Yeah, this is all the time. The nice part about Washington is we can file a divorce proceeding and get into court quickly in what we call a motion for temporary orders that within Clark County or Cowlitz County or Skamania County, within a couple of weeks, it says temporarily, here's how life's going to be. So when we have somebody who's making that demand or that statement or that threat, we can address it quickly, and that puts a Band-Aid on them for the moment till we can figure out what really is in the best interest of the child. Is it truly the right thing to move this child, take them out of school, out of their activities, out of their community, their doctor, and most importantly, away from the other parent because this parent wants to move to Arizona? What are the reasons they're going to move to Arizona? So this is something where if you have your wife who's saying, hey, I'm just going to go on vacation, I'm going to take the kids, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go visit family. Oddly enough, if you're having a level of conflict, if she says, okay, I'm going to stay here, and then she said, I'm going to stay another week, I'm going to stay another week, and all of a sudden 3, 4, 5 weeks, you got to be careful because that can set that new precedent. And then she said, well, I'm just going to now reside here. I'm not coming back. So you don't want to be proactive and file a case just because you're so concerned about that. But just remember, a longer period of time starts to create a factual precedent.
Yeah, so if they move or they head out on vacation, but they end up staying there for 3, 4, 5 months and start to assimilate to the area, and they find out that it's good for them, and obviously the longer they're there, the less likely the court would be to pull them away from their new home, right?
New precedent. And in Oregon, they actually have a status quo. You can go in the same moment you file a divorce and say, whatever the routine has been for the last 3 months, let's keep it that way. So we get a court order that keeps the parenting structure set. So there are things, protections to do at the beginning just to make sure that the kids are kept in their reasonable structure.
All right, next question for you, Colin. I am preparing for my second marriage. My fiance has also been married before. We are both in our late 40s. What is a reasonable request from her when it comes to a prenuptial agreement?
Yeah, I kind of break prenuptials into maybe 2 categories. Always a good idea to get one, as we've discussed, especially in this situation where you're on your kind of second round or you have assets to protect a home equity, 401k, or a business, things of that nature. The kind of the classic prenuptial is if you're bringing assets into the marriage, whatever you're bringing into the marriage, you list on this exhibit, everybody puts in the values and say, that's going to be mine going forward. The retirement account, the house that I'm bringing into the marriage, rental, a business. And then that stays separate throughout the process. And then whatever you generate during the marriage is considered joint. Now there's this move towards a more complete prenuptial that says, and what we do during the marriage is going to be separate. So if I continue to generate income or my retirement or investments, if I put it in my name, that is also separate. Same way with the other party, and only what we put in joint names during the marriage is joint. So it's kind of moving through the marriage now to define things that would otherwise be considered marital property that you generate together as separate. So it depends on what you want to include and how exhaustive you want it to be.
All right. We're talking to our good friend Colin Amos from the law offices of Goldberg Jones. Divorce for Men, 1-800-DIVORCE is the telephone number. Colin, what is typically the biggest issue couples face when going through a divorce?
The biggest issue we have as far as conflict and difficulty resolving attorney's fees is custody and visitation.
Mhm.
Kids, people kind of like their kids.
Yeah.
So they're willing to dig in and fight about it, make sure the parenting plan's set. So that's a critical one. Spousal support is another. We deal with that all the time, especially, the majority of our clients are male, and generally men are the ones paying spousal support. So we're always defending this issue.
Yeah.
And it can be quite sensitive because it can be a long period of time. It's a lot of money. So that is one area where I tell clients, spousal support is a negotiation. It's not a calculation. Child support is just a calculation. Plug numbers in, spits it out.
Oh, it is.
Spousal support is really about how you negotiate the terms. So you really need to make sure you're well protected. You have good representation. You know what you're doing, because once you agree to it and the court puts it into an order or you orders it, it is very difficult. It's an act of God to modify. So get it done right the first time. But that's a big one.
I just learned something new. I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
We've never talked about that specific. So that is all about negotiation, spousal support. It is not a calculation like child support.
No, there's parameters, but like in Oregon, it's length of marriage, income disparity, health, age, educational background, employability, work history. There's different types. So it really does depend on your facts and circumstances for duration, amount. So you really need to be careful on that one. So that's a big issue.
All right, next question, Colin. How much of a disadvantage is it if my wife has an attorney and I don't, going through a divorce?
It's a disadvantage.
It's a big one.
It's a big one. And it's not necessarily, it's not so much that they're going to try to get you.
Yeah.
A lot of people think, oh, she got an attorney, she's going to try to get me. There's a lot of details.
Yeah.
If you have anything important, like a parenting plan for your kids, your property and debt division, there's so many nuances and little details that need to be done. Her attorney is not there to protect you, to make sure that you get a hold harmless provision so your credit isn't stuck on a mortgage on a house that she's going to keep.
Yeah.
All of these little things become big things later. The parenting plan that is put into place, whether you regulate those details, it's 5 to 10 times more expensive to hire me later to tear down a bad parenting plan and rebuild it. So that's where having representation can just make sure it's done fairly, it's equitably. It's not a matter of just going out there and hiring an attorney to just fight about everything. Just making sure it's done right.
Yeah, that's why you call 1-800-DIVORCE. Next question, Colin. Are parental rights the same for couples if they have a child together but were never married?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the nice part about if you didn't get married but you're breaking up is you don't have to get divorced.
That's right.
You just say, I'm done with thee, and you move on. But you still have a child, so we file that process. In a divorce, it naturally would put together a parenting plan, custody, and visitation.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that, but you still have to file the petition to establish custody, visitation, and child support. Make sure that a parenting plan is put in place so it's enforceable. That's why you want it to be court-ordered and signed. But it's the same rights. We just have to work through things.
All right, good. Oh, I think the other thing to note, too, you guys do represent women.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, we're getting a lot more calls because there's a lot of women that have been in the workforce, obviously, that are making a lot of money, that feel like, hey, I'm the one paying spousal support. I'm the one that has this exposure and so they kind of think in that vein. We have a lot of moms and new girlfriends and new wives that drag their sons or their new husbands or their boyfriends into our office. So, and then they think, well, I have an issue, and then they end up using us too. So it's, we're here for everybody. It's just our marketing is certainly directed towards men, and probably 80% of our clientele is male, but we do represent women.
All right. So if you're a man or woman facing divorce or a custody issue, you can call 1-800-DIVORCE. And of course, we'll stress this again. Prenuptial agreements are a great idea, and you guys can also put one together.
Absolutely. We do it all the time. It's pretty straightforward. It's worth it up front. Absolutely. And I'll also give betting advice if you call and you need some on football. If you need a little.
Well, what's your take on the Indiana-Ohio State game?
Ooh,
Colin?
that's plus 13 Indiana. It's hard to lay off that Indiana.
13 points, right?
Oh, Signetti, love that guy.
How cool
me.
is that guy?
Google me.
Oh,
love that guy.
Google me.
Yeah, Google me. All I do is win. Google me. That's he said in an interview that he was just getting tired of all the questions at media day, so that came out, and now that's his mantra.
It's such a great
He
line.
got the contract, which is probably going to be bought out in a year or two.
Dude, thanks for coming by. That was awesome, buddy.
That's great.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Great. Thank you. Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
my man Colin Amos, law offices of Goldberg Jones. 1-800-DIVORCE is the telephone number. You can check him out online at goldbergjones-or.com. We'll come back, and I've got tickets for Trans-Siberian Orchestra coming up this weekend. We'll give those away next. All right. Big thanks to Colin Amos, who joined us in studio to answer your questions. I'm having fun today. This is a good song. Your love is driving me crazy.
I'm bummed I didn't play for Colin when he was here.
This could be a theme song for Colin when he comes in. There's a lot of good ones. Love Stinks, which you've done before, very subtly. What was the song you were playing after someone died? Someone passed away, and you were playing a song that was
Cool
Celebration.
Celebration. Oh, such and such died today when Celebration was playing in the background. Yeah, I ruined your show that day.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. All right, big thanks to Colin. Having fun today. There's so many great things going on in sports right now, and one of those, next to all the greatness in college football, has been the play of Bo Nix, who I did not get a chance to talk about yesterday, but we'll celebrate some Bo Nix today. Threw for over 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. I think he was 28 of 33. And he was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And the Broncos right now, and I was thankful the Chargers got over on the Bengals on Sunday night. The Broncos are in firm control. They control their playoff lives, their destiny. They just need to continue to win games. They play the crappy Raiders on Sunday, so they should be able to beat them down and just continue. They've got the Browns and the Colts after that, so they've got a good chance to run the record up to 9-5 before they finish up with the Chargers, the Bengals, and the Chiefs. But more importantly, aside from the playoffs, that's, the Broncos are much like the Blazers this year, where I'm focused on player development. And Bo Nix, I love his demeanor. He's proven to be a good teammate, a good leader, young in his career. But the steps that we're seeing in his game in terms of footwork, his shoulder position, delivery of the football, the game slowing down, and had a couple of tough throws down the seam over the middle where the anticipatory throws. So he's doing some next-level stuff, and it excites me because, the Broncos have been looking for high-level quarterback play since Peyton retired. And Bo is showing some good signs. Now, I'm not ready to say he's all that, but he's moving in that direction. And they're going to take on the Raiders this weekend. Ryan Edwards will give us a Bo Nix update coming up at 5:20. Sean Hyken is coming up at 5. We'll get the latest on Anthony Simons and DeAndre Ayton as the Blazers kick off a 5-game road trip tomorrow. They'll be in Oklahoma City to meet the Thunder. Chris Burkhardt will have game day at 3, and then the tip-off at 5. I'll have the Trailblazer pregame show at 4, and the Blazers will kick off the road trip. They got back-to-back games against the Houston Rockets. Friday's game will be a cup game, and then they play them again on Saturday as they continue the road trip. And we'll talk to Sean Hyken at 5, and we have another pair of tickets to give away for the Kings and Trailblazers on November 29th as part of our Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday presented by Lazy Boy. All right, we have also 2 pairs of tickets for the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. They're going to be at Moda Center on Sunday. So if you want to go to the show, which it is terrific, everyone I've talked to that's been to it, and many of you have been to it before and you understand how good it really is, we'll take caller 8 right now. Caller 8 at 503-248-0620, 503-248-0620. If you want a pair of tickets for Trans-Siberian Orchestra at Moda Center on Sunday, call now. I want to hear from an orchestra fan. 503-248-0620. Fire away, and you'll get a pair of tickets for the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. 503-248-0620. 503-248-0620. Call now. Caller 8 will get a pair of tickets for Trans-Siberian Orchestra. 503-248-0620. That is the telephone number. And that's all you have to do. Fire away, 503-248-0620. If you're just joining me, the Big Ten confirmed today that Oregon has clinched a spot in the title game, which we believed was true after the game against Wisconsin on Saturday. And then the Oregonian printed a retraction, and they came up with some other scenarios. But after further review, the conference has confirmed that Oregon is in. And in the statement, it said, quote, following a comprehensive evaluation of all possible scenarios over the final 2 weeks of the regular season play across all 18 teams, the Big Ten Conference determined there are no conditions whereby the Ducks do not finish number 1 or number 2 in the league. That, according to the conference. The report went on to say the conference also released a separate document outlining the 10 tiebreaker scenarios that could occur over the remaining games. The 3 teams vying for the other spot in the title game are Indiana, 7-0 in conference play, Ohio State 6-1 with its only loss to Oregon, and Penn State with its only loss to Ohio State. Each of those teams has 2 conference games remaining, and Ohio State and Indiana face off this weekend. In the 8 of 10 tiebreaker scenarios, Oregon will face either Indiana or Ohio State in a rematch of their thrilling October matchup that the Ducks won 32-31. If the Hoosiers beat the Buckeyes, they are bound for the title game, even if they lose to Purdue the following week. If the Buckeyes beat the Hoosiers, they are in unless they lose to Michigan in the season finale. Look, it's very simple. Those 2 teams are not losing the finales. Ohio State's not losing to Michigan because they stink, and Purdue is just awful, which is cool. So we know when you tune in 9 a.m. on Saturday, you Duck fans, trying to figure out who the Ducks are going to face off, the winner of that game will be in. It's very simple. What's up, Sade? 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. Coming up next, we have Trailblazer tickets to give away for the Sacramento game on the 29th. It's Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday, and then Sean Hyken will join us, and we'll get the latest on Ayton and Simons. Also, his reaction to the 3-game winning streak coming off the beatdown at the hands of the Grizzlies, the response, which was impressive. I know Sean was blown away that they took Minnesota out on the second night without Ayton or Robert Williams III in the lineup. So we'll talk with him. And then Bo Nick's update with Ryan Edwards at 5:20. Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday coming up next. Be here or be nowhere. Hey, what's up? 5 o'clock Chad here. Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday. We got another pair. We'll play trivia coming up next. Your chance to see the Trailblazers and Kings. Every Tuesday, we give away tickets to every single Trailblazer game on the schedule, courtesy of your Portland Trailblazers, and it's powered by Lazy Boy. The Trailblazers are off today. They're going to be in Oklahoma City to kick off a 5-game road trip tomorrow against the Thunder. Tip-off is scheduled for 5. Chris Burkhardt will have Blazers game day at 3. It's all here on 620 Rip City Radio, your home of the Trailblazers, presented by Coors Light. Sean Highkin will join me here in about 5 minutes. We'll get an update on Anthony Simons and DeAndre Ayton, their status for the road trip. After 2 days of confusion, it has been confirmed that Oregon has clinched a spot in the Big Ten title game. Also, the latest batch of playoff rankings are out. Oregon is 1, Ohio State 2, Texas is 3, Penn State 4, Indiana 5, and Boise State is hot BYU. They're number 12. All right, Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday, and then we're going to talk with Sean Highkin, our Trailblazer insider from the Rose Garden Report. All right, this is trivia time. First person with the correct answer, and I made it easy for you, so I'm not looking to, stress your brain out, okay? 503-248-0620. First person with the correct answer will win a pair of tickets for the Kings and Trailblazers November 29th. Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday is courtesy of your Portland Trailblazers, powered by Lazy Boy. Here's the question. First person with the correct answer, 503-248-0620. We'll get a pair of tickets for the Kings and Trailblazers. I am the 8th rookie in NBA history to record 17-plus points, 12-plus rebounds, and 8-plus blocks in a game. Who am I? 503-248-0620. First person with the correct answer gets a pair of tickets for the Trailblazers and Kings. I am the 8th rookie in NBA history to record 17-plus points, 12-plus rebounds, and 8-plus blocks in a game. Who am I? 503-248-0620. First person with the correct answer gets a pair of tickets for the Trailblazers and Kings, courtesy of your Trailblazers, and it's powered by Lazy Boy. I am the 8th rookie in NBA history to record 17-plus points, 12-plus rebounds, and 8-plus blocks in a game. Who am I? It's that simple. And then we have another pair of Trans-Siberian Orchestra tickets to give away. We'll do that coming up in 20 minutes before our conversation with Ryan Edwards from 850 KOA in Denver as we do a little Bo Nix update. Let's go out to Chris in the 503. Chris, I appreciate the phone call. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Chad.
All right, Chris, question for you. I am the 8th rookie in NBA history to record 17-plus points, 12-plus rebounds, and 8-plus blocks in a game. Who am I?
That'd be Donovan Clingan last Wednesday.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, my friend. Good work, good work. You've got a pair of tickets for the Trailblazers and Kings coming up on November 29th.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
You got it, buddy. We'll put you on hold. Put him on hold, my friend. So Chris is going to get his information collected from Michael Shacker, and he's dialed in. It's that simple. We do it every single Tuesday, Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday. Games for every ticket's on the schedule. We're joined now by our Trailblazer insider from RoseGardenReport.com. He's on social media at Highkin, and Sean Highkin is back. Sean, good afternoon, buddy.
How you doing, Chad?
I'm very well. First off, I want to give you credit because you came out after the game on Wednesday when Portland made it back-to-back nights against the Timberwolves. They did not have DeAndre Ayton or Robert Williams, and you're like, hey, I did not expect Portland to win the game tonight, and they did. Props to them. What were you thinking as that game played out in terms of how they were able to get the job done against Minnesota coming off the beatdown at the hands of the Grizzlies?
Well, when they won the first game, which obviously that was their biggest win of the season, obviously, because of, the response coming off of, how much of a disaster that Memphis game was. But I just figured, okay, they got their bounce back win. We know the season isn't dead in the water now. So that's good. But then, especially, once Simons was ruled out ahead of time for that game, and also with Robert Williams out because he wasn't playing on back-to-backs, I just figured, okay, they got their feel-good win, and now Minnesota, who's a much better team and more talented team than they are, is gonna just come out and smack them in the second game, and also just because it's so hard to win both halves of one of those baseball series that they do. It's not very common that, like, I mean, you saw that happen the first time they played the same team twice in a row with New Orleans the first week of the season. The Pelicans won the first one, the Blazers won the second one. So I just figured that was going to go one way, and then it went another way, and then they kept it going 3 days later with the game against the Hawks. So it's not how I expected. As I wrote after the Hawks game, it's just an insane turnaround they had in 1 week, from a 45-point loss with the coach calling everybody losers on the record to the media after the game to now they've won 3 games in a row, and the vibes are as good as they are.
Yeah, no doubt. I wanted to ask you about the response, because that was critical to be called out by the coach. Billups went nuclear, said they were soft, questioned their focus, and they weren't ready to play. He did everything that you're not supposed to do as a coach, but he felt the need to do that. But the one thing a number of players have talked about was how that opened up the lines of communication. From the guys you spoke with, how important was that for the guys to be able to meet at practice the next day and be able to communicate more openly about how they need to play, how they need to be more team-oriented, communicate on defense, and move the basketball? Did you get a sense that really helped them?
Oh, yeah, and I think really the main thing that you kind of come out of the way they responded in that first Minnesota game to what happened against Memphis was Chauncey clearly hasn't lost them, because, I've seen this a million times over the years. If the coach comes out and says the stuff that he said after the Memphis game, and then they come out and play like that the next game, I mean, when a coach comes out and says that stuff, that's supposed to kind of light a fire under guys and make them say, okay, we got to really respond and turn this around. If the coach has lost guys, or, they're starting to tune them out, they're going to, then maybe they just come out the next game and lose, in the same way, or it just doesn't really stick, and it's multiple games like that in a row, which is why I think that if it hadn't happened like that, then maybe we would have been talking about some bigger changes being made after those Minnesota games. But the fact that Chauncey aired them out like that publicly after that Memphis game, and then they came out the way that they came out in the 2 Minnesota games, where it looked like a completely different team from the team that didn't show up against Memphis, that just kind of shows you all the stuff that, people talk about, that I talk about, and others that are around the team talk about, as far as whatever people want to say about Chauncey as a coach, he still has guys buy in. Clearly their response after the Memphis game and after the stuff he said after the Memphis game is a sign that he does still have them.
Hey, Sean, Donovan Clingan was terrific in that win over Minnesota Wednesday with 17 points, 12 rebounds, and 8 blocks. His advanced numbers are very good. How excited is the team overall with the way he's played so far this year as a rookie?
I don't see how you couldn't be excited. I mean, it's been kind of, I wouldn't say like this has been like better than advertised, but it's been about as advertised. It's been everything you thought. If you told, if you made me guess on draft night, what it's going to look like Donovan Clingan's rookie season, I would have basically said he's not going to be able to play a ton of minutes because of the conditioning, but when he's out there, he's going to be impactful on the defensive end, and it's going to be a little bit of a work in progress on offense, but the rebounding upside and the shot blocking upside and all that stuff is going to be apparent from day one. So that's what I expected when they drafted him, and that's kind of exactly what it's been so far. I think the rest of his rookie season is going to probably be pretty similar. Like maybe he gets to work up to playing more minutes. A big deal was made out of how, that second Minnesota game with Rob and DA both out, he played 31 minutes, but he was dying out there by the end. You could kind of tell that was maybe a little more than you can expect from him, on a night-to-night basis at this point in his career, and probably not until next season. But I would say I know people in, the coaching staff and the front office and people within the team are very, very happy with with the early returns on Donovan Clingan and what he's brought after they picked him 7th overall.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Fun to watch. We're talking with Sean Highkin, our Trailblazer insider now. Shaedon Sharpe, last 2 games, 30 or more points, 24th Trailblazer to do that. And he was carrying the offense, had 13 points in the third quarter, during that key stretch against Atlanta on Sunday, but his veteran teammates were looking for him, and he was very productive. What are your thoughts on him? And I would imagine the team's got to be thrilled with the way Shaden has played since he returned from injury.
You're going to start seeing that more than more. And and this is actually kind of interesting, though, because, something I asked Chauncey about after the second game, or after the Atlanta game, because both in the second Minnesota game and the Atlanta game, the two games where he really went off in the second half, both of those games kind of went the same way. He was kind of passive, and he was taking some not great shots in the first half, and he was kind of all over the place. And then in the second half, he came out and was a different player. And I kind of asked Chauncey about, why he thinks it is that he has to, take a little bit of time to get going. And what Chauncey said was that he's a little too deferential, and he needs to get it into his head that guys are looking for him, and they want him to be aggressive from the start of the game. And you didn't really get to see him get into that kind of a rhythm on a night-to-night basis last season because his season was cut short so early because of the injury. So I think now that he's back from the injury, the hope would be that, as he gets more comfortable and as he kind of gets back from, the shoulder injury that had him miss most the first 2 weeks of the season, that he starts to get more comfortable doing that, and that he's just kind of, his mentality kind of evolves to where, no, I need to be doing this, what he's been doing in the second halves of these last couple of games, what he needs to be doing that the whole game.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you have an update on DeAndre Ayton, who's got the index finger issue, and then Anthony Simons, who's been out with illness?
So that's actually kind of interesting. So they had a practice yesterday before they flew out, and Chauncey kind of indicated at practice yesterday that both of those guys were unlikely to play. So I just assumed they weren't going to. And then earlier today, they put out the injury report, and DA was still listed as doubtful, so I would be surprised if he plays in the next couple of games still. But Anthony Simons was listed as questionable, which I thought was kind of interesting. And that usually when a player who's been out is upgraded to questionable, that is a kind of a sign that they're going to try to go, that they intend to try to go, and that, they'll see how they feel with Ant. I don't know. I still don't know exactly what the illness was, but, it's that time of year that everything's going around, and he's also got a young kid, so it's probably just some sort of virus or bug or something. But with him, it's just a matter of if he hasn't been able to do much for a week since he went out in the first Minnesota game. It's just a matter of, does he feel like he's going to be back in shape and have his wind enough to play in a game? And so I would guess that's something that they're going to go through shoot around tomorrow morning in Oklahoma City and then make that decision one way or the other. But the fact that they listed him as questionable on the injury report makes it sound like he's going to try to go, and then, we'll just see how he feels tomorrow. But if he doesn't go tomorrow, then he, I would think, should go, a couple days later in Houston.
Hey, have you heard from fans over the last week who are concerned about the Trailblazers winning 3 straight games?
Yeah, of course. But, I don't know, man. Like, they won 3 games in a row in November last year, and they ended up losing plenty of games to get where they needed to get to. Yeah. I wouldn't worry about it too much. And also, like, you don't want to be – Detroit won 14 games last year, and they had by far the worst record in the league, and they moved back to 5 in the lottery. It doesn't guarantee you anything. So it's also like it's one of those things where, like, they'll lose the amount of games they need to lose, and then their schedule is still really, really tough coming up. I think they play Utah a couple of times before the end of the calendar year, but other than that, pretty much every other team that they play is a team that is going to be favored to win. So they're going to have plenty of losses, and then once you get to the trade deadline, they're going to probably do some stuff to ensure that they lose. I wouldn't worry at all about these guys accidentally making the play-in or doing anything to hurt their lottery odds.
Yeah, I agree with that, but don't you think that in a year where, player development is so critical, that if you have a few nights or you go on a little heater because your young players are developing and leading you to victory, I think those are moments you have to celebrate, because I got to be honest with you, after what Klingon did and seeing Shaden Sharp explode in a couple of games, like that's what I'm looking for, because those could be key building blocks moving into the future. I think we celebrate those moments too.
That's a good point, Chad, because, like, look, if they had won a couple of these games because, like, Jeremy Grant went off,
yes,
or, one of these more veteran guys that isn't going to be here long term, if one of those guys led them to a couple more wins that's going to hurt their lottery odds, then, that's obviously that's a little bit of a something that I could understand fans being like, what are we doing here? Like, this isn't really helping anything in the future. But them winning these games because Shaedon Sharpe is going off for 30 points 2 games in a row, and Donovan Clingan is having the game that he had against Minnesota the second game, or like Denny Avdia having his best game in that first Minnesota win, who they just traded a bunch of stuff to get. Like, these are guys, like the guys that are helping them win these games are the guys that they see as long-term guys, and they want to, I'll tell you this. I think the front office and the coaching staff, even though they know what the deal is this season, they know what the goal is for the season, they would take winning a couple of extra games if it means getting to see Shaedon Sharpe and Donovan Clingan looking like this. They would take that trade-off 100%, given how much they've invested in those guys.
All right, he is our Trailblazer insider. You got to check him out on social at Heiken, and go to rosegardenreport.com for his written coverage, which is terrific. And, of course, you hear him on 620 Rip City Radio. Sean, as always, man, I appreciate it. Great work, and we'll talk soon.
I'll talk to you soon, Chad.
All right, that's my guy right there, our Trailblazer insider. All right, so from one good thing to another, it's time to get into a Bo Nix update. I love Bo Nix, and I know some of you do as well. So Ryan Edwards is going to join us, and we'll talk about his dominant performance against the Falcons and the key to his development. That's coming up next on the Rip City Drive.
The Rip City Drive presents the Bo Nix Update.
Play fake for Nix on 3rd and 2. Loads it up. He's got a home run ball. It is there. Touchdown, Denver. Cortland Sutton. What a call. What a throw.
Here on 620 Rip City Radio.
All right, joining us right now from our sister station in Denver, 850 KOA, is our good friend Ryan Edwards, who joins us for a little Bo Nix update. And Ryan, thanks for your time, buddy. It's great to catch up with you. I hope all things are well. And I got to be honest with you, I was thoroughly impressed with Nix's performance, not just because he had 4 touchdowns and over 300 yards passing, but it was the next level throws, like the one we saw to Vele down the seam where it was anticipatory. I mean, what did you see in his performance on Sunday?
Yeah, man, that throw right there was just one of the, especially when you got a chance to go back and see it from the all-22 and see the camera shot from behind. I mean, that is an A-level throw, and that is something that the best quarterbacks in the league, you want to be able to see that. I'm not saying he's there, but it's certainly an encouraging sign. I mean, a lot of people came out of, when Bo Nix coming out of college said, this guy can't make those kinds of throws, and he's showing every single week that he can, and he just needed some time sort of develop in the NFL, and I think we're starting to see the fruits of that labor. The coaching staff has been developing him, and he's starting to look more comfortable.
With a rookie quarterback, obviously you want to see certain signs throughout the course of their first year that show that type of growth. I mean, is this that next step? Are we going to start seeing more of these type of things more than likely from him as we move forward?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it seems like he's getting more comfortable. Sean Payton's getting more comfortable with what he can do, what a lot of the players in the offense. We're starting to see a lot more out of Marvin Mims, for example, who was mostly an afterthought for most of the season until the last 2 weeks. They started moving around the formation, putting him in the backfield. So you're just starting to see them being able to unlock more parts of the offense. And, again, it's a comfortability. Now, you could argue from the other side, okay, well, the Atlanta Falcons defense, they were last in the league in sack production. They were 27th in pressure rate. So maybe there's a little bit of the fact that they had success against that Falcons defense was because, they're just not very good. But I still argue you have to, in the NFL, you still have to go out there. You still have to execute the plays. And I thought it was a really good game plan mixed with great execution. Obviously, it's the first time in NFL history that a rookie has thrown for over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an 80% or more completion rate. So they're on to something. We'll just see if they can continue it.
Ryan, I'm wondering, too, and you're around the team and the coaches and have a chance to talk to them. I wonder how much of the success, too, is the factor of Sean Payton getting more comfortable with Bo Nix and knowing what he can do, what he can't do. And then with that, understanding better the personnel that he has and how to utilize that in different packages. How much do you think that's helping Peyton as he gains more familiarity with them?
I think that's exactly right. And I think it is helping a ton because and there's probably some, there's other levels to this, right? I mean, Greg Dulcich is a guy that was playing early in the season. He's been a healthy scratch for the last several weeks. And you sort of think, okay, well, this guy coming out of UCLA was tabbed as maybe one of the next, receiving tight ends in the league. And, he had some drop issues and obviously some blocking issues. But Sean Payton has shown the ability to work with those kinds of players. Jimmy Graham wasn't a prolific blocker, but he found ways to utilize him in the offense. So I agree with you that you're starting to get a little more familiarity with the players you have. Audric Estime is a guy they're starting to lean on a little bit more as a rookie running back. So now that you're starting to see some of these guys, Devon Bailey as well, getting just a little bit more kick, I think that you're getting an idea of, okay, well, now I know more about what these guys are capable of. Let's see if we can continue to develop that while we're giving Bo Nix more tools, more opportunities to build what he feels is more comfort in the offense.
We're talking with Ryan Edwards from 850 KOA in Denver. After the loss to Kansas City, which was just so rough with the blocked field goal, one thing that Payton said after the game is that he felt they would be fine moving forward because he trusted the leadership. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, what else is he supposed to say? But when you see the result and the way they came out after that gut-wrenching loss to Kansas City, maybe there is something to that. How is that locker room, and how well is Bo respected as a leader, as a young player, and just the guys together? They appear like a group that's having fun playing together and being on this journey. What do you see?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And it's so tough, right? Because we say those things, and you're right. And then you have a gut-wrenching loss like you did, or you get blown out by the Ravens, and you're like, okay, well, this thing can slip, right? I mean, there's only so much you can do mentally to kind of jump over those hurdles. But they were legitimately excited to get back out on the field and play together. There's that kind of vibe with these guys. There's this, okay, we are really building something. And I think for a lot of the players that have been here for the last few years and really didn't always feel like they were building towards something, it was like a bridge to nowhere, this is starting to feel like a bridge to something, and I think that's why they're so excited about Bo Nix, because there's an intentionality when you draft a first-round quarterback, right? I mean, that right there is a bit of a statement to the rest of the locker room, to the organization, to the fan base, that we're going to put our resources behind this guy, and we're going to give him every opportunity to succeed. And a lot of these guys haven't had that. They've had bridge quarterbacks. They've had guys that were Drew Lock was a second rounder, but for the most part, it's been kind of stopgap guys. This is not a stopgap. So I think there's a belief within the building, like, okay, we're seeing the progress, not only in the practice field, but out there in the games. And we actually know that when we got there on the field, this guy gives us a chance to do something special. And I don't think they've felt like that in a while.
All right, if memory serves correct, I don't think they've won a road game against the Raiders since 2015, and I know they've never won inside of their new building, their Allegiant Stadium in Vegas. So don't you think this is a good test for them this weekend where they're having some success, they're expected to win this game, but it's a place where they have struggled for years now, that they got to get over this hump? That could be a good test for a young team.
Yeah, they really have to. And it's one of those deals where you have to keep stacking wins. You control your own destiny at this point. You're the 7th seed, but you've got Indianapolis waiting for you to fail. You've got, even Cincinnati, who seemingly is out of it. If they start stringing together some wins, you know that they're a very dangerous team. Miami's still waiting in the wings. You've got to just keep stacking wins. The progress is the progress until you stub your toe against a 2-win Raiders team who's really got nothing to play for at this point. They're probably going to fire most of their coaching staff after this thing. So I'd say, yes, you're right. Up until earlier this year when you beat the Las Vegas Raiders, and that was the first time you actually had beaten the Las Vegas Raiders, because they hadn't done that until just recently. Now you have to take that to another level. And again, it's a division game, so they're going to play you tough if they can.
We're talking to Ryan Edwards, 850 KO in Denver. I want to talk college football with you for just a moment. I don't know what you expected going in with the playoff expansion, but how cool is it that here we are going into the third week of November, Ryan. We still have 20 teams with a potential path to the playoff, and we're going to have like 15 games on Saturday with playoff-type implications. It's pretty awesome, isn't it?
It's amazing. And it is so fun right now here in Colorado with CU having a path to the Big 12 championship. I mean, I wasn't down on them, but I kind of wanted to see it. You're a 4-win team last year. There was a lot of hype. I can understand why people wanted a little bit more substance to the style, and they've showed up. The defense was improved. The offense, I think, is improved, even though there's still some holes there. And even Coach Prime, I think he's improved as a coach. And so you just wanted to see it. But, yeah, I mean, it is so fun. College football is at its best right now. And you're right. The fact that we get 12 teams, which is so cool. I've been wanting this for years.
So good.
For me, the 4 was always just like, it's not enough. And people would say, well, if you expand it, then teams 13, 14, and 15 are going to be upset. I'm like, but when we get to 13, 14, and 15, we're not talking about teams that can legitimately win a championship. Right now, I can talk about these top 12 teams all vying for, and I think CU, again, I think they're going to make the Big 12 championship game, and if they win that, they'll have an automatic bye. I think they could be one of those teams, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. In fact, here's how I know college football is in a good spot right now. Just look at the Big 12. Colorado 2 years ago was coming off a 1-win season, arguably the worst program in the entire country. And ASU right now coming off back-to-back 3-win seasons. They control their destiny. Colorado controls their destiny. What a great story if you have Colorado and Arizona State meeting for the right to go to the playoff. How awesome would that be?
It's the best, and especially when you look at the preseason predictions for both of those teams, right? I mean,
yes.
they were picked to be last in the Big 12, and here they are on the other side of it. And, yeah, we legitimately might see those two teams playing each other, which is really, really cool. And, I know that, the BYU and Arizona State are going to play this weekend. That's a big, big game, obviously, multiple implications there. But this is where an opportunity, exists. CU, for the most part, they just got to focus on what they got to focus on. They got to beat Kansas. Kansas is not going to be a walk. Kansas has been kind of a giant killer. Yeah, they're going to be tough. It's at Kansas City. So that's the one for me. Like for a month plus now, I've been like, guys, Kansas is not a bad team. Like I know their record doesn't say it, but they're a tough team. They got a really good offense. That game for me has kind of been the one circled for a while. I thought they'd get past Utah with all their injuries, especially at quarterback. I thought some of the other games that they were going to find a way to win, but this one right here, this one's tough.
Yeah, it's a very dangerous game. I don't know what your reaction was, but I'm going to be honest with you. I teared up when I saw the Buff crowd, over 50,000, singing "Happy Birthday" to Superfan Peggy, who turned 100. Man, like I've seen some cool things, Ryan, but that one got to me. That was so sweet, wasn't it?
Oh man, if you don't get choked up on that, I mean, again, I'm a CSU grad, like that's my team, and certainly locally we have the back and forth, the big brother and little brother and all that. But man, that one right there, holy cow,
So
what a cool thing! And then Coach Prime brought her in today,
So
as a
good.
professor, which was also awesome. So yeah, that's just that's cool, man. I mean, Prime, whatever people want to say about him nationally, he's got a lot of heart. There's a lot of heart within that program, and I find if you can get past some of the more bombastic things that he sometimes says, and you just kind of look at the way he takes care of these kids and the way that he cares for this city and for the community, I think that you look at it and you say, actually, there's a lot of cool stuff there.
No, there's no doubt. I'm a big fan of Coach Prime, and I'm excited for him and what he's been able to accomplish. My final question for you, Ryan, is it's really two-pronged about Colorado. What do you think Prime will do after the year? I know he said today that he's got a kickstand down. And then do you think his son will be the number one pick in the NFL draft, or at least the number one quarterback taken?
It's such a good question, and we're obviously speculating as well. It felt like from the beginning of this thing that this was a 2-year deal for him, and then he just kind of sort of see what happens. Maybe he just retires and he kind of watches his son and Travis Hunter, who is in a lot of ways one of his sons.
Yeah.
He watches them play in the pros. Maybe he goes and gets an opportunity to coach in the SEC. I still don't see him as a head coach in the NFL. It just doesn't feel like that's a good fit for him. But you never know, right? I mean, if Jerry Jones, for example, that's the one that keeps getting floated out there. If he throws a lot of money, makes him the highest paid coach in the NFL, I mean, gosh, how do you turn down $20 million a year? And again, I don't think he's going to do that. I don't think he should do that. But you never know. Money changes people's minds. I'd like to see him stay. I think a lot of people want to see him stay, but once his son is not there, once both of his sons, Shiloh as well, aren't there, it's going to be interesting. Whether Shedeur goes number one overall is going to be sort of tough. It depends on who's there, right, picking. I still think Travis Hunter has a chance to go number one overall, but I think either way, those guys are locks for top 10, if not top 5.
Well, you know what? The only bad part about Denver playing so well and making the playoffs is that it's going to ruin our dream, you and I, of seeing Travis Hunter in a Bronco jersey. That he's so good, Ryan. He's awesome. Gosh.
He's amazing. Yeah, you kind of run out of superlatives, right? I mean, you run out of ways to describe what he's doing. It's one thing to say, hey, I'm going to play both ways and the amount of snaps, and we say, okay, yeah, that's great, but can you be good? Can you be elite doing that? And he just shows up every single week. We were having debates, of course, on the air about Heisman voting and all that, and it's like, I was asked yesterday, like, what else can he show? And I was like, honestly, there's nothing else I think he can show. I think at this point he just needs to finish the season doing what he's doing. I think he just needs to finish it out, finish the job. And if they're a winning team, which they're obviously going to be at this point, and they may at least make the Big 12 championship game, I think at that point he's checked every box. And I do think that there's going to be a team near the top of the draft that's going to like his skill set and find packages and ways to use him for both.
Oh, and on a side note, it's been a very difficult time in the business, in our line of work, in the industry. I'm sorry about the loss of, two great people. Like Brandon Cristal is a great dude. And then Alfred Williams. Gosh, Ryan, it's brutal.
Yeah, that is tough, man. Like you said, it's a tough part of the industry. We kind of, we always say we know what we signed up for, but it doesn't make it any easier. And certainly on our end, people are very valuable to what we do, and obviously I miss them, tremendously, and I know that they'll both, do great things beyond this because they're both very talented. But yeah, that was a tough one a couple weeks ago.
Because I would imagine your setup is similar to mine, where in this business in radio, and you work with basically like the same crew of people every day, so they become like it's like family,
Yep. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And it is like family. And yeah, I've talked to them a couple times, both of them. And, you just, Phil, even our producer as well, lost his job too. So yeah, it's tough, but, we just sort of be appreciative for what we do have and, obviously be there for them. And, I certainly one day, you, me, all of us, we won't get to keep this gig. And
yeah, we're going to get the call.
Just kind of yeah. So you just, you try to put up good numbers when you can and be there for the people that don't have it. And that way, when you are in a similar situation, that hopefully they're there for you too.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I tell you what, man, I appreciate the time that you come on the show. I love talking ball with you. What a great time it is, man. College football's on fire and Bo Nix is on fire. So it's a lot of fun, buddy. Thank you, Ryan.
Anytime, brother. Appreciate you.
All right. Ryan Edwards. He's awesome. He's with 850 KOA in Denver and love talking ball with him. Oh, I'm feeling good. I can't wait for the college football this weekend. The Arizona State, I'm all Sun Devil. And I love Kenny Dillingham. And Cam Scadaboo is my favorite player in the country. I don't know if I told you this, but Arizona State has overtaken Oklahoma as my number one. That's just how it is. And my buddy Steve, I can't go because of the Blazers, but he's going to do a day trip down to Zona this weekend for the BYU game. But I want Colorado and Arizona State to match up in the Big 12 title game. Everyone's talking about Colorado, but Arizona State's the better team, and I think Arizona State's going to win out. They're going to beat BYU, they're going to beat Arizona, and then they'll face off against Colorado and get that in the Big 12 title game. It's going to be awesome. But if you have not watched the video of the Buff fans singing happy birthday to superfan Peggy, who turned 100, it's freaking gold. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Chad doing Rip City Drive. We'll give away another pair of tickets for Trans-Siberian Orchestra coming up next. Have we given away 2 pair today? We got one more?
Yeah, we got one more pair.
Yeah, one more pair. We'll give away another pair for Trans-Siberian Orchestra coming up next. All right, Trans-Siberian Orchestra are going to be at Moda Center on Sunday, and we got another pair of tickets to give away, so let's do it right now. We'll take the first caller through. Fire away, 503-248-0620. Call now, and you will get a pair of tickets for Trans-Siberian Orchestra, 503-248-0620. First one through, 503-248-0620. You get a pair of tickets for Trans-Siberian Orchestra Sunday at Moda Center, and we'll have more tickets to give out throughout the course of the week. 503-248-0620. First caller through will get a pair of tickets for Trans-Siberian Orchestra Sunday at Moda Center. All right, you got to watch it. I just spent time during the break, and I got teary-eyed again. But Coach Prime, he's taken he and Peggy, this super fan that's 100 years old, they have created a good friendship and a bond. But it's so cool to, one, see the entire stadium singing happy birthday to her because it blew her away. Very touching moment. But the way that Coach Prime has taken care of her, he let her go down on the field and do the inaugural kickoff during the spring game, which is pretty amazing. And he held a press conference with her to celebrate her 100th birthday. He brings her in and takes care of her. And he treats her like a nana. And I just think it's special. And I know it means a lot to her, but they're friends now. And they connect, and he goes over to visit her and takes care of her, and she supports him and encourages him and prays for him. So the whole thing is just awesome. And again, I was really close. I know, like a lot of you, I mean, I was very tight with my Nana right up until the day of her passing at the age of 91 years old. And so for Peggy to reach 100 and still be bumping around and in good health and stuff is pretty amazing. But that's pretty cool. Very cool. So I know there are a lot of you out there that you don't like Coach Prime, you don't like this, you don't like that, you don't like the style or whatever, but he's doing good things, man. He's doing good things. He did great things before he got to Colorado, and he's doing really good things with that program. And we'll see what his decision-making process is, but I think Colorado is perfect for him because they don't have this tradition like a lot of these other schools do. Like at Penn State or Ohio State or Michigan, some of these schools, these blue bloods who have been around forever, they have traditions. So when you take over a job there, like you're expected to kind of fall in line with the long-standing tradition of the school. But Colorado is different. When Prime took over, they were a complete disaster. And so he was given free reign, like a blank canvas to just create whatever he wanted. And there aren't too many schools where you get that opportunity to do that. And so he's created what he wants. And he's got the freedom to run the program the way he wants. It can be his show. And so I think that's got to be very appealing to him. And obviously what he's done for the program is great. And that's why there's so many great stories in college football this year. What Coach Cignetti's done at Indiana is unreal. They're unbeaten. They're a basketball school. And they're unbeaten right now and have a chance to knock out Ohio State and secure a berth in the Big Ten title game. And regardless of whether they win that game or not, they're probably going to go to the playoff. Probably. Isn't that wild? And then BYU. I know they dropped the game to Kansas, but they were picked to finish it near the bottom of the conference. But they, with Coach Sataki, have been one of the best teams in the country. Arizona State's one of my favorite stories. Colorado's a great story. And you've got all these teams in action right now. This weekend's going to be great. Like, I've never been in a position to where I'm looking forward to each Saturday so much with all the games. So good. So good. The only thing I'm mad about this weekend is that work is going to interfere with my desire to be on the couch watching college football from 9 a.m. up until about 10 o'clock at night. I love those Saturdays where you get uninterrupted college football action. It's the best. Absolutely the best. So that's where we're at. So just watch the video. Just watch it. Just watch the video. Can you imagine? Like most people do not like happy birthday being sung to them because it's embarrassing, like at a restaurant or even in your own crib where you got family members around. Can you imagine being at a football stadium or at Moda Center and they just belt out into happy birthday? And you got like 50,000 people singing for you? And you're 100 years old? How badass is that? Yeah, it's so good. All right, Trailblazers tomorrow. Oklahoma City. So they're going to kick off a 5-game road trip. Love seeing the young guys play well. And we've got a new batch of college football rankings out. Oregon 1, Ohio State 2, Texas, Penn State, Indiana, Notre Dame, Bama, Miami, Ole Miss, Georgia. the most interesting part here is how all of a sudden you've got now Boise State at number 12, which is wild, absolutely wild. And that's really the big story. I'm reading this report here. It says, based on resumes, Boise State has a better loss than BYU on the road against number 1 Oregon. BYU lost at home to Kansas, who is 4-6. The week before, BYU needed a miraculous comeback to beat Utah. The Cougars have not yet played any of the Big 12 teams ranked in the current top 25, and they'll be at number 21 Arizona State on Saturday. What I'm curious about is, because I think Arizona State's going to win out. So if Arizona State were to take out BYU on Saturday and then win at Arizona and then beat Colorado in the Big 12 title game, would that thrust them ahead of Boise State when it comes to, the teams that are in? Because right now Boise State's on track to get a first-round bye. Can you imagine that? Maybe you have a team like Georgia playing in the first round and Boise State's got a first-round bye. And no disrespect to Boise State, but their schedule is not exactly murderer's row. And I'm just fascinated by the whole thing. It's too much. It's almost too much of a good thing. It's almost too much of a good thing, this new college football playoff expansion. And it's only going to get better because they're going to keep expanding it. But the scenarios and the potential matchups we're going to see, we've needed this basically my whole life. And I'm mad that half my life was robbed from all these losers that kept telling us that we didn't need a playoff. Well, like there are sometimes where the powers to be, when they're telling you stuff, your gut instinct as you get older, you're like, that's bullcrap. They're flat out lying their asses off right now, and that's what was happening. And it's the same reason as it usually is, money, because there were too many people in too many positions of power who were earning high levels of cash through their stupid bowl games and were resistant to change because they didn't want the money system to stop, right? It's kind of like politicians. Everyone talks about this side being bad. Ooh, Democrats are bad. Or, ooh, Republicans are bad. No, they're just politicians. They all want the same thing. They all want power, and they all want to dip their hands into the treasury and then continue to sell us a bill of goods. That's what it comes down to. There's really no difference. They just want to rob the treasury, and these bowl leaders just want to continue to dip their hands in the money pile. Just give us playoff games. And by the way, get rid of the bowl games and give us all games on campus sites except for the championship game. That's where we need to move to. And add more teams, too, while you're at it, because 12 is not enough. It's great, but it could be better. Just keep that in mind, fools. All right, big thanks to everyone who joined the show today. Michael Shacker. Big thanks to Ryan Edwards, to Dennis Dodd, to Colin Amos, Sean Hyken. Tomorrow, early Blazer game, so we'll have Blazer game day at 3 instead of Rip City Drive, hosted by Chris Burkhardt. And then tip-off against the Thunder at 5. And you all have a wonderful night, and we'll talk to you tomorrow here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio.